Okay, here is an interview. Patsy and the creator is on. They were on YouTube, but I guess they're not on YouTube anymore, which is weird. But the creator on TikTok is Madeline is me, and that's MadeleineIsmee. So Madeline is me, and that's on TikTok. So got two of these videos, and there were three, but again, YouTube is gone all of a sudden. So I think I just have two. So here's the first of two.
Nearly 10 years ago, 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey was found murdered in her home. Although there was no evidence that the parents were involved and charges were never filed, unprecedented media coverage served to convict John and Patsy Ramsey in the court of public opinion. While grieving the loss of their daughter, they endured persecution, suffered the loss of their job, their home, and their savings. In all of this, they continued to battle cancer that threatens even now Patsy's life. Many of us would shake our fists at a God who would let this happen, but their faith only grew stronger. Tonight, John and Patsy Ramsey join us to share their story and their faith in God, which has sustained them through their darkest of days. Would you please welcome with me John and Patsy Ramsey? Welcome, would you?
John. And you can kind of see as they came out what John was talking about in the book. And we talked about John was talking in the book. We can see that he's clearly kind of holding her up. So that is confirmed.
Please have a seat.
Thank you.
Now, you both have...
John,
please have a seat.
Thank you.
Now, you both have put out a beautiful book here called The Depth of Innocence, and this is about the whole ordeal that you went through. Tell us a little bit about JonBenet. What kind of a girl was she, and a little bit about the background of all of this.
She was just fun. She was gregarious. She was always wanting to put on a show and entertain you. And we'd have friends over for dinner, and she'd come down and have orchestrated all the little kids into a little entertainment act after dinner or something.
Now, you lost another girl right before that, too, John.
We lost our oldest daughter, Beth, in 1992, and JonBenet was 2. And one thing that was so meaningful to me, even though she was only 2 years old, she really sensed that I was hurting and grieving, and she latched onto me like glue, and it was just a neat feeling for me.
Now, tell me what happened. There was a ransom note left in your home.
We got up early that morning, the 26th, we were to leave to meet with our older children.
So it was
in
Christmas time.
Christmas time. It was the day after Christmas. Patsy came down, found a ransom note at the base of the stairs, and screamed, and our life changed from that moment on.
How much did they ask for, John?
$118,000, which was a bizarre number.
Why that amount?
Don't know. We don't know. There's been speculation, but it was that was a very strange part of the ransom note.
And then how many days later did you find her body?
Well, the note said...
John looks skinnier here. Looks a little bit skinnier. I'm not sure what that's in regards to or why that is. Might just be the stress of the time period.
I will call you tomorrow, and I didn't know if tomorrow was today or tomorrow was tomorrow, and I thought, my gosh, I can't wait till tomorrow. I can't stand that. But so we waited, and then finally the police asked me to look through the house thoroughly, and I found her in the basement about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
In your own home, in the basement?
Yes.
Now, after this horrid ordeal where your daughter Beth dies, and then JonBenet is found murdered in your own home, all of this must have taken a huge toll on both of you. And yet, with all the agony, the police focused on you guys.
They did, and I was to learn that the police always focus on the parents initially. Of course, we were in the house, and even though we were shocked at that and dismayed, we thought, well, okay, we understand that, but please don't just focus on us. We accept that, but don't limit it to that. And sadly, in this country, statistics.
Just like, man, Patsy doesn't look too bad here. I mean, for what she's dealing with, to even agree to something like this is crazy. Knowing how weak she is and how tired she is, to agree to something like this, to sit here for this time period, and she doesn't look bad. So I understand what John was saying in his book. I know, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I know this is going to happen, but I mean, it's hard to tell because she looks good.
Statistically, I think 68% of the time it's a caregiver that's involved in such a tragedy. But you have to cut that one more slice. And in almost all of those cases, all of those 68% of those cases, almost all of them, there's a long history of problems that are well known to the police and the social services and the schools and so forth. And of course, that wasn't the case in our case, but we were shocked, but we accepted that at the time.
Now, both of you were people of faith before this took place, and Patsy, when that
And she has on a wig here.
happened, did you say to God, I mean, how would you let this happen to us?
Well, I think we are human, and we want to ask why. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you I didn't ask why, and why my child. It always happens to someone else. Why my child? But we had a track record with God by that time. We'd lost Beth in the car accident that just rocked our family. Then a year and a half after her accident, I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, and God healed me from that. And so we knew God to be faithful regardless of the circumstances. And I think had the ordeal with JonBenet happened prior to those two events, I think it would have just devastated me beyond compare. But because I knew God to be faithful, and that He said He would never leave us or forsake us, that even though I had the why questions and was just grief-stricken beyond description, he just saw me through.
Now, why would kidnappers want to kidnap JonBenet? I know she was in a lot of pageants. She was a pretty little girl, and she had kind of the cover girl face, the little child. It's beautiful. Do you think that worked against her, that kind of publicity?
Well, see, people say, well, she was so famous, so but nobody knew that. I mean, truthfully, we hadn't done the pageants very much. I mean, a lot of the...
That's what I was waiting to see. So it sounds like there's a slur a little bit, and it's probably on that left-hand side, because you can see the eye is kind of droopy on that left-hand side. So it's probably that slur is coming from that left-hand side as well. And I saw that she leaned kind of over a little bit and sort of rested herself, held herself up on this armrest right here. Could be nothing, but could also be her kind of tired a little bit.
This one pageant that we went to had a lot of different categories in it. So you were in sportswear, Western wear, party wear. So it looks like, but that was one event, one weekend event that we went to.
And the audience too were grandparents and parents.
There were 8 or 10 people in the room.
We were told by John Douglas, who was the fellow that started the FBI profiling lab, a very brilliant man, that he spent a lot of time looking at it, and his best assessment was that it was someone that was either angry at me or jealous of me, and that's a hard pill to swallow, because I can't imagine anyone being angry with me, or certainly that angry. But I respect his judgment. So
John,
that's the best.
Just a kidnapping that went bad?
That's what the best detectives have told us. They said, don't read any more into it than is there. And they said, in our opinion, it was a kidnapping, that something went wrong. And,
what were some of the myths that the media spun that would put you on trial?
Well, probably the first one, in fact, we wanted to make that the title of our book, was No Footprints in the Snow. And that got out there immediately. And of course, we lived in Colorado, and it was winter, but and I hadn't really noticed. I did remember that coming home that evening, there was no snow in the yard or the driveway. Christmas Eve. But then we saw the crime scene photographs that were taken early that morning when the police first arrived, and there was no snow.
John is trying to oversell. He went into overselling. Patsy was talking, and they were on good footing, kind of talking about, everything that was happening and, how we got to this point and so on and so forth. And they were on good footing when Patsy was talking. But then after Patsy got done, when she was talking about the pageants, and then John interjected himself and said, and when John started talking about the FBI profiler, I think this is where it's starting to go downhill. We talked a little bit ago about Paul, how you saw the flash in her eyes, where it goes from real grief to now I'm about to start getting on my dialogue. I'm about to start getting on some speaking points. That, when he started talking about that FBI profiler, that's when he really started to dig in and start going into this dialogue, this, intruder or murder suspect dialogue, because now we're getting away from legitimate conversations about, we're in grief, we're in loss. How could God do this to us? Because this should be about how could God do this? How can I, maintain my faith through all of this? And, how could something like this happen, and what we were expecting, and how do we feel? That's where this conversation should have stayed, but it's not there anymore. Because again, as we've tracked John through these different interviews and through this analysis, even in Linda Arndt's report, where it kind of came to a head, John has to have this sort of control, this sort of imputed control that he is trying to push into the situation. This is John's imputed control that has to be there, even when it doesn't need to be. And I think that says something. I think that says that there are some things that John has inserted himself into that he didn't need to insert himself into. And so from that perspective, some things could have gotten messed up when they didn't need to be messed up. Some things could have gotten messed up when they should have been left alone, because John inserted himself into that situation. That is what is a little bit concerning to me. What else have you inserted yourself into that could have been left alone, could have been fine, but because you think that you have the answer, you think that you can control it, all of a sudden things just kind of start going downhill.
And so that was the fact, but the fiction got out, No Footprints in Snow. And as someone said once, when you have a rumor like that, it's like shouting, but the fiction got out, No Footprints in Snow. And as someone said once, when you have a rumor like that, it's like shouting fire in a theater. As everybody's running out, you can say, ooh, just kidding, but they don't hear that part. It's too late. And that, to me, was probably the first thing that got out in the media. And what was interesting, too, was that, ooh, just kidding, but they don't hear that part. It's too late. And, ooh, just kidding.
Patsy is looking at him very easy, and almost like admiration. She's looking at him. And I wonder what she's thinking. I wonder if she's like, in that moment, she's thinking, I love this man. I know I'm not feeling good in my body, and I know I might be leaving soon. I don't know how much longer I have left, but I really love this man. I appreciate this man, everything he's come to be, the man I know. So I wonder, and as she's looking at him, you can see she's looking at him in sort of like this, with total trust. I trust you with my life. I trust you with everything that is in me, and everything that I am, you have, is what it looks like she's looking at him with.
But they don't hear that part. It's too late. And
it's almost like she's not even listening to engage in this story of trying to ping pong. Because, in some of the earlier interviews, they listen to ping pong back and forth. But it's almost like, you got it. I don't need to interject, because in earlier interviews, a lot, they would talk over each other. And Patsy would be just as jumpy as he was. But right here, Patsy's not jumpy at all. She's just like, you got it, babe.
That, to me, was probably the first thing that got out in the media. And what was interesting.
And it's almost like for the first time in her life, she doesn't feel like she needs to explain or defend herself, is what it looks like. I don't need to explain myself. I don't need to defend myself. Life is what life is. It is what it is. And so now she looks back over and she's looking down. And I wonder if she's having a bout of pain or a bout of sadness or some sort of bout as he's talking and as they're going through the situation, like a sudden reel, every now and again when you're thinking about some impending, things just flash into your head and take you out of the moment for a second. I wonder if that's happening.
Interesting too was that the national media was taking information from the local media. So if that came out in the local paper, the local radio station, that immediately got picked up by CBS or ABC. And so it very quickly spread.
Now, you were on
wildly.
Barbara Walters and some others.
We did an interview probably 3 years after this happened. We, for most of that, for all of that time, we just didn't really talk to the media. Barbara Walters was the first interview we did. I think that was in 2000.
I think she's uncomfortable now.
For most of that, for all of that time, we just didn't really talk to the media. For
Barbara Walters and
that immediately got picked up by CBS.
So she's cool there.
Yes, or ABC. And so it very quickly.
And now she has this sick look on her face. She looked down and you see kind of her lips, because her lips were down here. They're down here. But now they're kind of pulled up in a. So I wonder if she's feeling that pain some way.
Spread.
Slight bit of queasiness. She looks back over. Lips are still higher.
And some others.
We did an interview probably 3 years after this happened. We, for most of that, for all of that time, we just didn't really talk to the media. Barbara Walters was the first interview we did.
Yeah, she just closed her eyes for a second.
Media. Barbara Walters was the first interview we did. I think that was in 2000 or 1999.
Now, you have a son named Burke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dang, she's not engaged at all, really, at that point.
Named Burke.
Mm-hmm.
How did he fare through all of this? Because he lost his older sister, Beth, and then JonBenet.
Mm-hmm.
He's right in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Well, God has just had his hand on him, and that's been our constant prayer, is that our children, our 3 living children.
That's the point I kept. I knew there was something else I wanted to say when I was talking about Patsy and John letting her go. When they told him to let her go, the hospice nurses said, you got to release her. And I knew there was something I wanted to say. I wanted to say that it's funny because Patsy had held on, I think. She got a year and she was praying prior to, she was saying, Lord, don't let me raise my babies, let my babies go motherless. I don't want to raise my babies without, having a mother. And I think, well, JonBenet was dead. So there's that. But then having to raise Burke, I think Burke was out of high school and going into college, or he was in college. So he graduated in 2005. and he graduated in '05 and she died in '06. So he probably graduated and he was 17, probably 17 something odd in '05. Let me just double check. I don't want to lie. Yeah, so he was 17 going on 18 in '05. And maybe a year later, I think in '06, he would have had to be. And so if he graduated in May, then he probably would have been starting Purdue in the fall, in August. And so by the time that came around, if he would have started Purdue and he would have stayed on track, taking 4 classes a semester, I think he would have been on track. So he would have probably, because he graduated Purdue in 2010, so I think he stayed on track. So he probably would have been a freshman going into his sophomore year in college by the time Patsy had said, okay, I got you, son. You're good and well into on your way as an adult, as a grown man. That's the best I can do for you. I can see you get into college and then, I'm going to go ahead and lay down. Is kind of where she stopped. So she kind of accomplished her goal in raising her kids. Kind of didn't. I know she probably wished she would have gone well into her 80s and 90s with him. But just didn't make it that far.
Would see how we have overcome this horrible, not just the tragedy of losing the children, the girls, but the aftermath that was so horrific. And every decision that we made was made on his behalf. We no longer were able to live in our home anymore. So we lived with some friends in Boulder for about 6 months until he could finish the 4th grade. And then we moved back home to Atlanta, Georgia, where our extended family lived. And he finished part of his schooling there. And then we moved to Charlottesville, Michigan, where he finished and graduated high school.
How's he doing now?
He's doing beautifully. Thank you. He made the dean's list his first semester at college.
Yes.
And he's studying computers.
That's what I thought. Okay, so she waited till he got good and in college before she let go.
And is just a brilliant young man.
We're very proud of him.
Now, it just seems like you've gone through so much, almost like Job. And we're going to take a break, John. And when we come back, I want to ask you about how you parallel with Job and how God delivered Job and maybe how God delivered you. Stay with us. We've been talking with John and Patsy Ramsey, whose daughter, JonBenet, was found murdered in their very own home, and they were the ones accused for the murder and how their faith pulled them through. We'll be right back in this very special edition of Connecting Point in Lives. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Okay, so I think that's all I have on that one. I thought I had another one, but I guess I don't. So I'll just kind of shut it down there. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time, of course, as you know, like, share, subscribe. And until next time, take it easy.